All right, guys, welcome back to the actual coding part of our tutorial. So hold on one second. So what we're looking at here is our upload service, which is the first service that we're going to create. And what we're doing here is we're just laying a diagram out here that makes it easy for us as developers to understand exactly what we're doing. So we need to understand what path we're going to be getting these uploads from. And that path is going to be /uploads. What methods are we going to use? So some of the common methods that we use are post and get. What do we want from our body message? In the case of posting something to a upload, we want to post the title of that upload. And that fulfills our goal of creating an upload. In the second layer of our upload service, we also want to get all of the uploads that we have. And for that, we don't need to actually add anything to our bodies. We just need to fetch and properly get those uploads from our upload service. So I'm going to show you guys how to do this with asynchronous and callbacks. So let me show you guys my code sandbox. I think this is right. Is this the right one? Okay. I believe this is the right one. So you can see here that Code Sandbox will set up an HTTP function. And that function will allow you to create a server. And that method on HTTP takes in a function that takes in two parameters, a request and a response. So what they've done here is they've taken the response and written to the response a string called hello world, and they've ended the response, and they're also listening on port 8080. So we want to use Express in this application. So what we have to do in order to use Express is we have to import Express into our file. So let's go ahead and do that now. And we're going to say const express equals require express. Then we're going to create another variable called const app equals express. So what we did is we just stored that function of express inside a variable named app. So now everything that we could do with the express library, we can do it on our app function. All right. So the next thing we need to do, we need to make two requests. One is a get request and one is a post request. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to say app.get, and we need to pass in that parameter of the link or the actual location of where these files will be going. So before we even do a get, we actually need to do the post method first, right, to actually upload the videos. And we're going to say /uploads. So app.post/uploads is going to be our first function inside of our new microservice. And what we want to do next is we want to add in an additional argument into this post method, right? So what we're going to do next is we're going to pass in the request and the response. So to do that, we just do a comma and then we do request and response. Then we write an arrow function that's going to return that response. And it's going to be empty for now. We're just going to wrap it in a parenthesis and close it for now because we're going to add some implementation details in a minute. This is the most important thing right here, is just to understand what your methods are, understand your endpoints, and you'll be able to figure out everything else, right? So we have app.get/post. It takes in a request response, and we write an arrow function that returns an object. Very simple. Next, we're going to do a similar thing with get. So the URL is going to be the same. It's going to be /uploads. And then it's going to also take in a request and a response. Then we're just going to do an arrow function to an object and wrap it with a parenthesis. Yeah, let's fix this right here because we don't need that parenthesis there. All right, so this is first. And the next thing we can do is we can say, we can actually get rid of this HTTP create server object because we don't need that anymore. And we could just say app.listen. And when we call the listen method, we pass in a port number. So let's just say for now, the port number is going to be 8000, right? And we don't need that HTTP method anymore. So we can get rid of that because all of that is in Express. It's built into Express, I should say. So let's save our file. All right. And you'll see here it says port 8080 closed because we're not listing on port 8080. For the sake of this video, we'll just make it port 80 because that's the standard port that your Node.js server will run on. All right. And let's see. It's saying it cannot find the module Express. So if we don't have Express installed, we just type in Express and it'll add Express to our application. So let's save again, restart our server, and that error should go away. Our server control panel is actually right here, so we can just click restart server. And let's see. Are we still having an issue here? So let's restart the sandbox and restart the server because it's still showing the old server. Yeah, it still hasn't even updated this homepage. So I'm just going to refresh everything. All right, so we have it listening on the right port now. And to prove that, what we can say is we could do a console log here. Okay, console.log listening on port 80. All right. So we'll continue to build on this because right now we see that we cannot actually get our resources because we haven't actually set that up yet. So for now, just keep in mind that what the pattern that you want to get out of this exercise is that when you're using Express, it comes built in with several methods, HTTP methods. And in order to access those methods, we just refactor our Express function into our app function to make it easier for us. And then we just pass in two arguments. The first one is going to be a parameter, which is going to be a URL. And the second argument needs to be a function that has two arguments, a request and a response. And then it will return an object. So that's just the basic scaffolding that we're doing here. In order to make our console log work, we have to use a callback function. And that's why it's not working right now. So again, we're following the same pattern that we did with our uploads. So instead of closing our parameters there, we just pass in a function. And then we use an arrow function to say we want to return whatever's in our console.log. Okay. All right. And so that's how we fix that. So a lot of these methods, you'll see the same pattern over and over and over. They're going to take an initial argument, and then their second argument is usually going to be an arrow function. In the case of HTTP methods, we need to actually get a response and send a request. So that's why we pass in those arguments here. But as you can see here with the app.listen example, because all we're doing is listening and returning a value. Nothing specific about the value that we're returning besides the console log. So now we've set that up. Let's go a step further. So let's actually move to the next step of this. And this is where we need to actually generate some sort of ID. All right. So to do that, we're going to import the random bytes library from our dependency. So just type in random bytes and it'll add that dependency for you automatically. And then we follow the same import pattern where we say const random bytes equals require random bytes. All right, so what are we going to do with this random byte? So again, the point of what we're doing now is to create an ID, just a temporary ID. So we're going to do this actually under our post method, because when we make our post, we want to actually post an ID with it. So inside of our function here, slash uploads, we have a request, we have a response, and we're returning an object. Inside of that object, we're going to create a variable called ID. So let's type in a variable. whole time? Okay.